Of course. So again, we're just going to make this castle real quick. So actually make it in the same document just so I have this guy to reference from. And again, this little eye up here will turn off the mesh so you don't see it anymore, so it'll just get out of your way. So again, to drop a shape, you left click on it and that'll bring up, like this is a cube for example, the cube properties are over here. So most of the time you're going to want to start everything at the position is 0. The size, I'll just start off at 1 meter and then the segment's just 1, so it's a perfect cube. And then to drop that cube in the scene, you simply right click and it'll be in the scene. And technically my tool is still active, it still says cube over here, so I could add segments, change the size to like 2 meters for example. Change it back to 1. And then to drop this tool so I can actually start moving it around, I'll hit space bar. Now it's in the scene. To select the entire object, you can just double click on it, or up here you can do select all, and that'll grab the entire thing. So again, to make the walls, I'll just use scaling and keep this as a cube, and then move it over. And now, something I haven't shown you yet, but to make life easier, if I wanted this same cube, instead of starting from a cube from scratch, there's this duplicate tab right here. So we'll hit this, and then these could seem really intimidating, but if you look, they have a little icon that kind of tells you what it does, as well as if I was to hit F1, and then this little question mark for your icon comes up, and we're going to end up using the clone tool, so I'll click on this, it'll bring up Modos help, and this tells you everything you need to know about the tool. All this clone does is just makes a duplicate of what you already have. So I'll go ahead and click on that, which activates the tool. All these settings are currently set to 0. The important one over here, I always keep all these at 0 because I want a perfect copy, is number of clones. Oops. So if you right click, it'll bring up your move widget, so I can just move this over and it has one that's exactly like it. So if I was to pop the number of clones to 2, it would just keep adding. But I only need, for right now, I'll just use 1. And then to drop this tool again, hit the space bar. So we have the 2 walls going. Just so you can see again, this is what we're going to be making. So it's going to need 3 walls, a couple of cylinders with the cones on top. Go ahead and scale this down so it's a little bit closer in size. And again, I'll clone this again for the back. So activate the tool, right click, the widget comes up, move it, spacebar to drop, double click it, and then rotate. Your rotate value is down here, so if I wanted this perfectly perpendicular, I just hit 90 degrees. And then again, instead of going back to this basic tab and hitting move, scale, and rotate, I hit W, E, and R that correlate. And again, this doesn't need to be perfectly located, but get it kind of positioned in there. Go back to the duplicate tab, hit clone again, right click, drag this out, actually pull it out a little bit more. So what I'm going to be doing is creating these 2. So the first one, just bring this over, send it back, go ahead, clone it again, left click, activate the tool, right click, pull it over. Now this top piece, I'm just going to duplicate this again and then move the bottom up. So now instead of scaling it, I'm just going to grab this bottom polygon, hit W to move, and bring it up. And then dropping a cylinder down, I really don't need all these segments. So I'll go ahead and hit 1 for this, and then just make this 20 side so it's not as big around. And then spacebar to drop the tool. And again, this is significantly larger than the rest of everything, so I have to scale it down and scale it in. Move just the top down. And then just like the walls, go ahead and clone this. Oops. Send it over. If you grab, just a sec. If you don't grab an arrow, you'll actually move in on multiple axes. So that might not be what you want. So if you just hit Control or Command Z to undo, and then grab just the move arrow on the axis that you want, that'll give you a little bit more accuracy. Now again, I'm going to shift, double click to grab one, shift and double click the other one. Now I have both. Now I'll hit clone and then right click, and I'll be bringing both of these forward. And then just like this castle, the back ones are a little bit higher than the front ones. So I'll go ahead and grab both of the tops, hit W, move it down a little bit. And again, my navigation's starting to feel kind of weird because I keep zooming in and out. So it doesn't really know where I want the center. It's actually centering the screen about right here. So I want to center it pretty much between these 2 points. So selecting what you want to center around, hold Shift and hit A, and now I'll just be centering around this. So if I wanted this front, for example, now it's centering around the average of these 2 points, so it'd be about right here, which would be the same as this, but just zoomed out. So and again, we need 2 cylinders for the front 2 towers. So I'll just go ahead and use the clone tool again. At the same time, scale both of these. Scale this one up. We'll scale it up by 125% just so we can scale the other one equally. So you can either put these in one at a time, but that gets kind of tedious. Oops. And then again, I hit spacebar to drop that. Or this one, hit R to scale. If I hit this little circle right here, it'll actually scale on all axes. So hit 125, and then all of them will scale up. And then spacebar to drop. And then just move both of these down. So you'll notice that I have like the move widget up, and I don't want to accidentally click and move these. Hit undo a few times. So if you just hit the space bar, it'll drop that. So now you're just in selection mode again. And we'll go back to the basic tab, make a cone, space bar, and scale this guy down. So we'll scale it up and scale it down in the y-axis. And again, I don't need to worry about making this perfect because the point of this exercise is more or less to get used to navigation and then dropping shapes. And then again, I'm using the clone tool, 1 to show you that it exists, and 2 save time, so I'm not dropping new shapes for each one of these guys. Okay, for this bottom right here, this isn't a box, this is just a single plane. So there's 2 ways I can make this. The first being if you hold down Shift, you'll get this plane right here. And a different way to do it would be to make a box. Oops. have the height set to 0. So we have a box. What I'm going to do is just select the bottom and all 4 sides. Oops. And again, I'm holding Shift to select, to add to the selection. So Shift adds to it, and Control subtracts from your selection at any time. So now the only one that's not selected is the top. So I'll go ahead and hit the Delete key. Now I have just a plane, and I can move this right there. So the only thing left are these logs, and that would just be making one and then duplicating them and positioning them. But that's pretty self-explanatory at this point. So I'll go ahead and end the recording here. And